Welcome back to the Bandwidth Tapes. I'm Brad Williams, and today I'm joined by mandolinist and composer Jacob Jolliffe. Jacob is one of those rare musicians who moves effortlessly between bluegrass, jazz, and classical music while maintaining a strong, unmistakable voice of his own. In this conversation, we talk about following curiosity instead of rigid career plans, building a band with your peers, and how playing both sideman and bandleader roles shapes empathy and leadership. We dive into a new mandolin concerto written specifically for Jacob, his years at Berklee, and why consistent practice and discipline matter more than perfection. This is a thoughtful, inspiring conversation about craft, curiosity, and the long game. Here's my conversation with Jacob Jolliffe. Jacob, it's a pleasure to welcome you to the podcast. How's it going today?
Oh, I'm doing great, Brad. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, it was. I've been looking forward to this, and we had a little chance to catch up before we started and talk about all of the people that we know and have in common. It's the music world is quite smaller than people may realize. It's pretty fun.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I was bummed that had a prior commitment and wasn't able to hear you and your band. I think you played in St. Louis, I think back in May. So a few months ago, you guys played up here at the Blue Strawberry. I'm bummed that I didn't get to hear that show.
No worries, man. Yeah, that was a really nice room. It's sort of a jazz club vibe, and it was a good fit for us. It was super cool.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
As we were recording, I think you were telling me that you're about to head out for some shows out in Colorado this in the next few days. Tell me about what you guys are doing.
Yeah, we're playing just a weekend run. We do a lot of weekends and then some, longer 2 or 3 week tours, but mostly weekends. And we're playing in Aspen and Gunnison and Denver and Boulder Friday through Monday. So should be fun. A couple places we've played and then a couple new spots. But I always love playing in Colorado. I spent a lot of time out there when I was with Yonder, and it's just a great, fan base for bluegrass and adjacent music. So always look forward to that.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's great. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, one of the things I saw on your schedule that I'm just going to make some assumptions here.
No worries.
I get the impression that you enjoy getting to play in a variety of settings. Your calendar, you play with different people, and I imagine that do you enjoy the variety of getting to collaborate with different musicians on your live schedule?
I do. Yeah, absolutely. And it's also I also kind of go where the wind blows me in a certain sense too, in terms of I don't have some sort of overarching plan for a career. It's more like, oh, I love playing with these people. Let's pursue this. Maybe maybe it's maybe it starts as just a couple days when we were all picking or jamming a lot, and then it's like, oh, let's book a little tour, and maybe if you had a big pop band or something and had record labels and lots of sort of people behind you, you have to be real strategic. But I don't feel particularly strategic. It's more just like I love to play and I love to play shows. And and there's a lot of people I like to play with, so I try to fill my schedule up as much as possible, while I'm
Yeah.
relatively young and don't mind the travel and stuff like that. So, yeah.
Yeah. That's great. Yeah, as we're recording this, we're ending 2025, which I just can't believe that I
Yeah,
feel like we just started 2025 and here we are.
that's right.
What does 26 look like on the horizon for you? What do you have in the works?
Well, I have a couple albums that will be coming out. One is kind of a classical record, which is not obviously my like home genre by any means, but it's and also a good example of something I probably wouldn't have set out to do if I hadn't just met the right people and put in the right scenario. But I have a friend, an amazing musician named Jesse Jones, who's a composition professor at Oberlin College, and also a great mandolin player and great piano player, and he's very familiar with bluegrass and kind of what's been done in bluegrass in the last like you know 50, 60 years, and he is also obviously this amazing super lauded classical composer, and he decided to write a mandolin concerto for me to play because we're like old friends. We met when I was like maybe 10 and he was like 20. And we were both mandolin pickers, So, anyhow, he's an amazing dude. And he wrote this concerto, which I performed, I guess, last year with the Oberlin orchestra there. And then we recorded it this year, earlier in like January. And yeah, it's all done. Um, it's for mandolin and like sinfonietta. So it's like a 15-piece orchestra. Um, yeah.
Yeah, I found just some clips I think that you had posted, and uh, I'm so excited to hear this. But the thing I love about it is like it first of all, I'm a big fan of contemporary classical music,
Uh-huh.
so that checks the box for me. I'm like, okay, but I love that it feels like it kind of bounces back and forth between that and feeling like a traditional, mandolin tune, which is really fun. That it feels like it has this kind of a really cool dual personality to it, which I'm really excited about.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, my friend Jesse, he's sort of well placed to do something that, has totally like dense modern classical types of harmonies and rhythms, and but then also is totally checked out on like Bela's music and Thiele's music and Grisman's music, and so when he does something that's almost like fiddle tune esque, it's something, it's not corny in the way that like perhaps someone who was only familiar with classical, and if they were choosing to reference bluegrass, they would maybe do so in sort of a corny cliche way that wasn't really cool from a bluegrass perspective. Jesse's definitely capable of writing something that's like relevant from both perspectives. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and it I totally understand what you're saying, and it's very easy for it to almost feel like a caricature of what it is, uh
yeah.
and man, what you're playing on that, wow, there it's really complex. I mean, that it's a challenging piece of music.
Yeah, I'm not sure which parts you've heard. Maybe you've seen some of the little videos of us recording.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was certainly a challenge for me, and continues to be. And um, yeah, it was, and I memorized it obviously too because it's hard enough that honestly, like having the sheet music on stage, I don't think would have helped me that much anyway. And obviously, it took so much shedding, so much practicing that sort of got memorized just by accident anyway. But excuse me. Yeah, it was a big challenge, and also just as an ADM, I'm not used to, and there's a lot of kind of stylistic things. Even for something that's kind of bluegrassy, there's still like a lot of stylistic things with classical music that I'm not familiar with, and having to play catch up on. So, um, but I got a lot better at, like, for instance, following a conductor. I'd like never really done that before, and it's not as intuitive as you might think. At least not for me. Um, yeah,
No, you're exactly right.
yeah, yeah.
No, it's. I feel like I have this conversation on here a
Uh
lot,
huh.
talking about working with conductors, and that it's especially in the role that you're in that piece where it's finding that balance of being knowing when to drive the bus and when to be a passenger on the bus, and finding
Absolutely.
that sweet spot in the time, and making sure you're not ahead or you're not listening so much that you're falling behind the beat. It's a really delicate dance to figure that out.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that's a good way to put it. I mean, there are some times where if I'm sort of charging forward, the conductor kind of follows me and it sounds good. But then other times it sounds much better if I'm a little behind what the orchestra's doing, at least to my ears.
Yeah.
So anyway, that'll be on it. It's a 5 movement piece. It's about 25 minutes long, and that'll be on an album with two other shorter pieces that Jesse wrote, same composer, that are for solo mandolin. Um, it'll be kind of like there's like a prelude, and then there's a 5 movement concerto, and then there's like about a 6 minute other solo mandolin piece. And those two he didn't write for me. They were two works for mandolin that he'd already written. So we're sort of doing an album of like Jolliffe plays Jones, where I play all his works for mandolin to this point. Which is actually
Yeah.
not true when you factor in how many other like fiddle tunes and stuff that he's written, but I guess these are the works for mandolin within a classical context that he's done. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, and you guys play in a band together too, right? Don't you have a project that you do together?
Yeah, we have a band that you might describe as sort of an album band because we have more albums than gigs that we've played together. Because we've made 4 albums in about a 3-year stretch, and we've played, I think, maybe 3 gigs. So thus far, still our albums outnumber our gigs, which is kind of bizarre. But it's yeah, a quartet. Though in 2 instances it's expanded beyond quartet, but the core group is myself on mandolin and Jesse, composer, on guitar and a bit of piano and a bit of octave mandolin, depending on the album. And then an amazing bassist, Craig, who's a professor at University of South Carolina, bass chair of the bass department there. And he's incredible. He can really kind of shred arco stuff as well as pits, and kind of within a jazz context. And then an amazing young banjo player, Max Allard, who was a student at Oberlin when we started making these albums, and he's since graduated. But he's a really fantastic picker. Plays and writes amazing stuff on the banjo. So it's the 4 of us, and yeah, we made our first album. I think it was in January of 2023, and now we've made 4. So that's kind of crazy. Yeah, and three
That's
are
awesome.
out, and one is still to come out. But on the second one, which is in some ways my favorite because it's just so unique, it was kind of this interesting thing where we had this grant from Cornell University, to do a project that using an antique Moog synthesizer, and I guess he had worked at Cornell. Moog had, and so the grant was sort of based around that. So there's this amazing piano player, Zach Bergen, who's like an amazing concert pianist, professor at Cornell, playing piano and this strange Moog synthesizer. Uh, and so it's him plus the Ezra Quartet that I just described, and then also Mark Stewart, who's Paul Simon's musical director.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and he plays all kinds of stuff. Great musician, plays a lot of percussion and a lot of instruments that he built. So anyway, the second album is it's a 6-piece group, and it's sort of the most avant-garde maybe of the records because it's got a lot of strange sounds, put it lightly. So Yeah, and then the fourth unreleased Ezra record features again Zach Bergen, that piano player. So it's a quintet on that album. So
Man, that's amazing.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think Jesse's like the Johnny Greenwood of bluegrass music. It's pretty cool
Man, I'm not even
what he's
familiar with
doing.
Johnny Greenwood. Who's that?
He is the guitarist for Radiohead, but he's also has this other life as he's like becoming this really respected film and classical composer,
Wow.
and like he's doing all, like he's living in these two worlds and just kind of finding this amazing way to straddle the both of them. Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah, that's a pretty good analogy. Yeah, Jesse's he's like one of the most like hyper productive people um that you would ever come across. And it's a kind of a cool story actually. We like were friends when I was a kid and he was like college age. Um and we like would pick tunes at festivals and hang, but I was literally like maybe between 10 and 13, and he's exactly 10 years older to the day than me, and he was so 20, 23, something like that. And then we kind of fell out of touch just kind of when I got into high school, and he went off to grad school, and he also started a family pretty young, and so he was doing that whole thing. But yeah, we fell out of touch for like 18 years about. Um, and then I ran, not due to like any
Wow.
falling out, just purely just people getting older and circumstances and not living in the same place. But then I ran into a mutual friend, I want to say about 5 years ago now, maybe a little more. And it was a person I'd gone to Berkeley with. And he mentioned Jesse Jones, and if I knew Jesse Jones, and I was like, well, I know a Jesse Jones from like 20 years ago almost. And he's like, yeah, it's the same guy. He's like one of the most um, respected like classical composers in the United States. Like he's way up there. And I was like, oh, that's wild, man. Like he always wrote tunes, but I didn't really know he did that. Didn't know that that's the where his life had gone. And so then I reached out, I think on Facebook maybe, and we kind of got back in touch and started talking about, hoping to play music together again sometime. And then he came to a show of mine in maybe like 2021, right after the pandemic. And that's the first time, yeah, we'd seen each other in like, yeah, almost 20 years. Um, and then like I said, the first project we did with Ezra was January 2023, and he got funding to bring me out to Oberlin to do some teaching, and that's when we made the first record, and now we've done a bunch of different stuff together. So, and we'll probably be doing a bunch more. So, yeah, that's Jesse.
That's so
Yeah,
awesome.
it's kind of
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's so exciting.
yeah.
I think we're also, as you were talking about the banjo player being at Oberlin, I was thinking about you being at Berkeley, and people like, like Sarah Jaros being I think she was at New England Conservatory.
Yep.
I think we're just in this really amazing period where roots instruments and acoustic instruments are. I love that they are present in conservatories and in music schools, and they're getting you know they're getting more visibility in the world that maybe they wouldn't have even, like, I don't know, 25 years ago.
Yeah, yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, it's great. I mean, it's um and I had a great experience going to college on mandolin, um and now there's just so many more people doing that. There's so many
Yeah.
amazing you know pickers that are college age. It's amazing.
Yeah. Were you part of the American Roots program at Berkeley? Is that what you're doing?
I went to Berkeley. It was sort of before it was known as the American Roots Program, I'd say. Or it was, I think, right at the end of my tenure there is when it sort of took that shape. Um, but a lot of the same cats were already teaching. Obviously, Matt Glazer, he was like the chair of that program. He was, already there, been there for a long time, and I studied with an amazing mandolin player, John McGann, rest in
Hmm.
peace, who passed away in 2012. Um, and yeah, and there was a really amazing crop of musicians at Berkeley and New England and just in Boston at that time. Like you mentioned, Serge Rose and my good friend Alex Hargraves. He started a couple years after me at Berkeley. Dominic Leslie was at Berkeley. Sierra Hull was at Berkeley. Julian Lage was at Berkeley. And then a little bit older than us, but was like the Crooked Still people. Aoife and Greg List and Brittany Haas. So
Yeah.
she didn't go to Berkeley; she went to Princeton, but she was in Boston at the time. So it was just an amazing. There was a lot of great bands to kind of come out of that era that all have broken up since, but like Deadly Gentleman and the band I was in,
Yeah.
Joy Kills Sorrow, and a bunch of others too. But yeah, it was a great time to be in Boston, and feel lucky to kind of come up with that cohort.
Seriously, yeah. What a list of players that you just were talking about. It's pretty unbelievable.
Totally.
And I will say that, man, I am such a fan of. I'm such a fan of your jazz playing. The when
Oh,
the
thanks.
the standards volume 1, and then the the standards on snare, mandolin, and bass clarinet. Which it the title of the album just hooked me immediately. I'm like, I
It's a
have to
very
check this
catchy
out.
title.
I have to tell you, yeah, quite a catchy title. Just
Yeah, it
rolls right
really
off the
rolls off
tongue.
the
I love
tongue. Yeah, sells itself. Yeah.
it. I have to tell you, man, it contains one of my favorite versions of Giant Steps. I have to tell you,
Oh,
it's really good.
oh, thanks, man. Yeah, it's funny. That was probably the track I was the least confident in, but I appreciate you saying that. Yeah, that was a super fun record. Obviously, kind of a interesting ensemble: bass, clarinet, snare drum, mandolin. But it's really fun to play with, and they're both. There would be sort of dynamic concerns with that ensemble playing acoustically. But I'm a pretty loud mandolin player, and both of them are capable of playing really sensitively. So we actually play sometimes just fully acoustically in like this coffee shop in New York, and it's totally fine because obviously there can be some volume disparity, but range wise we're pretty out of each other's way, which really helps to still be able to hear what yourself over the group. Um,
Yeah,
Bass clarinet and me, we don't overlap too much, so um, yeah, but yeah,
yeah.
thanks. Yeah,
You're typically not. Yeah,
yeah,
you're typically not fighting over the same frequency range.
not
Which
really.
is nice to kind
Yeah,
of. Yeah,
yeah, it's a really
that's
fun
cool.
group.
Who is
Yeah,
Yeah. Who is playing on the Standards Volume 1? Who else is playing on that album?
yeah. So that's
Really nice.
thanks, man. Yeah, that was made a few years ago, and um, I need to make another record of standards. I mean, it's trying to play jazz very much like a second language for me at best, and it's always a work in progress. And making records is, it's not really that I even feel ready to make records doing it. It's more that the process, hopefully helps me get better at playing. But that's the lineup on that is an amazing bassist, Jeff Picker, who also,
Oh,
yeah, he
yes.
plays on my first band record too, Instrumentals Volume 1. I don't have the most exciting of
I just
titles.
interviewed him. He's gonna be on an upcoming
Oh,
release of
great.
this
Yeah.
podcast. Funny enough, yeah,
Yeah, well,
yeah.
Jeff's amazing. He was in, Nickel Creek and Ricky Skaggs' Kentucky Thunder, and before that, my band. But yeah, he's one of my good friends, and really amazing bassist for jazz and bluegrass. Um, and we met in 2014 when I moved to New York. He was already here, but ironically, we're both from Oregon, um, from the Portland area. We never met out there, but we studied with the same piano player. Like I took some lessons in high school, just sort of like jazz lessons with a piano player. I was still playing the mandolin, but just kind of learning some theory and some sort of stylistic things. And this amazing piano player, Randy Porter, and Jeff, at the same time, unbeknownst to us, he was, studying with Randy and I think gigging with him and recording with him and stuff. So because Jeff was already kind of tearing up the bebop as a high schooler. So we didn't know of one another back then, but we put it together. I think the very first time we ever met, that we both studied with Randy. And so when I had the idea to do the record of some standards on mandolin, I was like, I'll get Jeff and then I'll get Randy to play piano. And it'll be the first time the three of us have played. And
that's
yeah,
cool.
And then my buddy, an incredible drummer, plays in Leftover Salmon, named Alwyn Robinson. Just a fantastic drummer. Kind of came from jazz and classical music, but he got this gig with this jam band, and he's done that for quite some time now. But he's a real beast, and we did a bunch of gigging together as well, like with a trio, like bass, drums, and mandolin. But anyway, he was kind of my favorite drummer to play with. It's really amazing at really anything, but like he actually has a lot of he has a way of playing bluegrass on the drums from like now 10 years of playing with Leftover Salmon. They play these like crazy fast tempos, and he has this amazing way of playing bluegrass on the drums that's like not corny and train beaty, and kind of pulls in a lot from jazz, but is so precise and so like sensitive when it needs to be that there's kind of no one that can do what he does. That said, I mean, he was playing pretty more straight ahead jazz on my record, but so that was the quartet. So I kind of go way back with all the people involved.
It's funny, and not even joking when I just tell you that I also just had Alwyn on the podcast.
Oh, no way.
Recently. So,
that's awesome.
Yeah, so I have 75% of that album is now represented on here, so that's really great.
Yeah, that's cool, man. Yeah, he's a great dude. He lives not too far from me in Brooklyn. So, yeah.
His new album is fantastic. I love everything he does. He is just such a deep player, just like you, though, man. I mean, just brings so much knowledge from just all different kinds of music that just kind of morphs into this amazing thing that I think both of you do as well as anyone.
Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate that. Yeah. It's kind of, I think that's the type of people you find in New York who can like play several genres really well and have a lot, probably experience with a few more, and have done a lot of different kinds of gigs. And I really like musicians like that. I mean, I also really appreciate musicians who've just played basically one genre their whole life and are just like total masters and just live and breathe that. Like, I also really, I idealize that sort of type as well. I'm thinking of some sort of specific bluegrass and Irish musicians and stuff. But in New York, you're lucky to be around people that can do a lot of things well, that's the fun thing, I think, with some of these musical relationships is like you can kind of relate on multiple levels and kind of through the language of multiple genres too. It's like you can find a drummer that's kind of familiar with bluegrass language and bluegrass rhythms and stuff, as well as can tear up like straight ahead jazz stuff, and that's kind of, that's rare, where it's not just sort of a gimmicky thing that they're happening to do this one time,
tell me about the origin of your own project, your band that you also have, and who all's in that, and how did you all start playing with each other?
Yeah, so I joined Yonder Mountain String Band in 2014, same year I moved to New York, and that was super fun. It was kind of big contrast to the band I'd been in before, Joy Kills Sorrow, uh, and it was it was just kind of the perfect gig for me at the time. I'd been playing with this band that was like, a great band, Joy Kills Sorrow, but we were always super broke and never made any money. And I was kind of a kind of a somewhat more cushy gig. Sounded really nice at the time, and I mean, when does that not sound nice? And they're
Yeah.
and they're great dudes, and I had a lot of fun touring with them for the 5 years I did it. But about a year or so in, I was also feeling a little bit just like, oh, I want to be still playing with my peers, like people that I came up with, And I had never had really band leader aspirations before. I wouldn't say. Maybe I would have had them eventually. Maybe it was just part of getting older or something. But it felt like at the time I was just like, oh, I want to be on tour with my peers as well. Like I don't want to, because the Yonder guys and gal at the time, Allie, like are all quite a bit older than me, and also not people that I went far back with at the time, at least not people that I grew up with. So I sort of had a longing to be in a project with my peers, and so I was like, okay, I'll put a band together for a few tours. I'll make a record, and I don't think I necessarily predicted it becoming like as large of a chunk of what I do as it is now. But that's just the way it goes. With the first iteration was Alex Hargraves and Jeff Picker and Stash Weisslouch on the guitar, who's another super genre bending avant garde musician. Maybe the most avant garde of all the ones I've mentioned. Has he been on the podcast?
No, he is not.
Oh, he'd
He's
be a good
not.
one. He'd be a good one to get.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah. So
I'm going to make a note of that right now.
Yeah, Stash Weisslouch. Yeah, he's incredible. He's up in Boston, and he puts out just amazing music under his own name. Really, some of the most like progressive bluegrass related stuff that you could dream up. Yeah, he's incredible. But so yeah, that was the first iteration, and at that point, we made my first album, and that was like maybe 2017 or something, and we did a few gigs. But the touring kind of, I'd say, was pretty evenly sort of ramped up over the next few years. I was still touring with Yonder. But then end of 2019, I stopped playing with Yonder. And, well, then the whole world shut down for, a few months or a year. But then sort of on the other side of the pandemic, my band has been sort of the main thing I've done. I've done a lot of other stuff too, but that's the one I probably gig the most with. And we don't play, it's not an insane amount of gigs a year, but it's quite a few solid tours every year. So, yeah, that's sort of the origin. Oh, but now, I should say the lineup, it sort of went through this phase of like, oh, the cats on my first record, I couldn't always get them because they're, rightfully so really in demand. And, at the time, Alex was getting called to go do like Thiele's, NPR show. And if he's Thiele's first call and my first call, he's going to be busy sometimes, when I try to get him. And the same goes for the other two guys. So, I started getting some subs on the various instruments, other great, amazing players like John Mylander and Jake Stargell on guitar and, Eli Bishop.
John's also been on the podcast, by the way.
Oh, nice. Okay. Well, he's a good friend as well.
Yeah.
And makes a lot of fantastic music. He played a bunch with my band. Eli Bishop did some gigs on fiddle. Rob Hecht, or Bobby Hawk as he's known, he did some gigs on fiddle. So Mike Robinson did some gigs on guitar. So basically then I went through this phase, maybe 2018, 19, where I had a bunch of different cats that I could call, which was a real challenge because my music's pretty hard. So just having all these people up on the music was very difficult, and it was a ton of rehearsing like for every tour, and I don't know if I could do it now, even just being like 5 years older. Like it was just so intense trying to do that, but I'm glad I did it because it allowed me to do a lot more gigs than if I just sort of waited around for the one lineup I had recorded with. Um, and then not through any concerted effort exactly, but the lineup kind of congealed into a more solid, consistent group. When sort of first off, my good friend Miles Salonica, when he joined on bass, he started doing like all the gigs basically. He kind of prioritized it, and it fit well with his playing and his life and everything. So he's been my consistent bass guy for now, several years. I think back to 2018. And then fiddle and guitar just sort of solidified in the last 5 years or so. Ross, basically 90% of the time now on guitar, my good buddy Ross Martin. I don't know if he's been on the podcast, but he'd be a good one to have too. But
he has not.
Yeah, he's fantastic, and he's played with a lot of people. Played a lot with the Matt Flinner trio.
Okay.
But he sort of became my full-time guy on guitar, and then amazing fiddler George Jackson from New Zealand, but living in Nashville. He joined like 2 years ago, or 2.5, almost 3 years ago on fiddle. And I've had a couple subs in the last few years, but it's basically been that lineup now for like 3 years. So
yeah,
and it's just kind of it took a while to find the people who the gig kind of fit with like what they wanted to do.
How do you think that being, being a member of a band, working, I guess we'll call it an organization, prepared you for being in charge of your own project? Do you, because I've worked with band leaders over the years, and some are great and some are not as great. And, you take all of those things that you learned in those experiences, and it certainly shapes the way you are in your own project. How do you think that you've approached it with your own?
Well, I tend to think that like the best band leaders have worked as sidemen, and the best sidemen have done at least a little band leading, enough where they can appreciate the magnitude of the task. Because without that perspective,
that's a great way to say that.
Yeah. Without that perspective, there's a lot of complaining about your hired hands, your sidemen that a band leader might do, and certainly a lot of complaining about your band leader that a sideman might do. And if either one doesn't have any experience doing the other's job, there's really no replacement, no amount of explaining how hard it is to do one or the other that really substitutes for having done it. So, a great example would be someone like Sierra Hull. Like, she's, by all accounts, everyone that works for her says she's an amazing person to work for, pays well, great to be on the road with. And she's a friend. I know she's an amazing person, but I've never worked for her. But like, obviously, she's also totally capable of being a side person. She's played with lots of people. She played in Bela's band, and so she's a great example. And not every big famous band leader has been a side person, and some of them are probably great band leaders in spite of it. But I do think that there are those band leaders out there that haven't done much side work, and it sometimes shows itself in the way they lead. And then also very much the other is the case too of certain side people I've been around. They're sort of always angsty about feeling underappreciated and underexpressed in their role, but yet they're not really going out and doing their own thing. And that's also kind of an annoying mentality to be around. So I think both sort of benefited from at least, for a tour or two having to do the other role, Uh, yeah. Yep.
Yeah, and I'm with you, and it's I do think that experiencing both sides of that coin
Yeah.
is important to understand and have some empathy for the other people that you're working with and understand that well.
Yeah.
I totally agree. When you mentioned Bela, I think I first saw your name and went down the listening to everything I could of you when you were subbing on that. I think you did some dates with on the My Bluegrass Heart tour, which I saw in Missouri at some point.
Oh, nice.
Doing that tour. If you can imagine, Cira was she was on the show I saw.
Yeah.
But if you can imagine the triple bill of the Jerry Douglas band, the Sam Bush band, and then Bela's band, what a night epic. That was. It was incredible.
Yeah, that's awesome. I remember.
How was that experience for you?
It was amazing, man. Yeah, I think I did like 20 to 30 dates, something like that. And it was incredible. I mean, it was just to get called to do it was obviously a dream come true. And speaking of great band leaders, Bela's another prime example of someone who's been in bands, been in other people's bands, and is a fantastic band leader. I don't have a single negative thing to say other than he rehearses a ton, but I like to rehearse a ton, so that works for me. And if you don't, do you really want to go out and play Bela's music and not rehearse it? That sounds way more miserable in my mind,
and terrifying.
And it's terrifying enough with plenty of rehearsals. So we did almost we almost played everything in sound check every day. Not quite. There was just enough different sort of people switching around instruments and sound scenarios that sort of made sense to play almost every tune. But yeah, it was like maybe 2/3 of the set at least we rehearsed, if not more, in sound check. And then sometimes additional playing and rehearsing off stage. But yeah, he's a really fantastic band leader, and just getting to rehearse with him at his house was for me, like, some of the funnest time was before the first tour I did. Cody Kilby was also subbing in the band and hadn't played the music. And so we did like 3 days in the backyard, just me and Bela and Cody playing the arrangements. And that was, honestly, that was some of the funnest times for me, because it was just like, nothing's better than that, get to play with those guys. So, and it was, it was a really amazing experience. Hope to do more at some point. But he's really great band leader. He's definitely all about playing, and he doesn't dish out tons of critique or tons of praise, but it's very pointed when he does. Like, if it's a critique, it's not personal, it's just very specific, and if it's praise, it's not just blowing smoke. He's like, it's an actual thought that he had that he wanted to share, so it was great, man. It was really the best.
like I was telling you before we recorded, I grew up in Georgia, and um, I used to go to this place up in the mountains of North Georgia called the Georgia Mountain Fair,
Uh-huh.
and I mean, and it's like all kinds of of artists have played there through the years.
Yeah.
One of their big things is they do like a big like it's like a fiddlers convention, but
Okay.
it's essentially like it's like mandolin competition guitar. Cody, I believe Cody used to go there and compete
Mm-hmm.
as a guitar player when he was a teenager.
Yeah.
But I'm almost 50, so I grew up in the 80s,
Yeah.
and I remember going to the Georgia Mountain Fair when I was a kid, and I actually got to see Newgrass Revival
Oh,
there
sick.
in their heyday, man. And I still remember to this day, it was like I was a little kid, and I just remember sitting there thinking, "What am I experiencing right now?" You know,
Totally, man.
it was incredible.
Yeah, I mean, I would have
Yeah,
loved to have seen Newgrass. I mean, I remember watching videos in the '90s when I was a kid, but yeah, I never got to see them live. But that's amazing, man.
Y- yeah, it was amazing. You know, so
That's
well,
cool.
yeah, man, it's amazing. So before we go, I know we had talked a little bit about what you have coming up. I'm just curious of like, what is your what is your routine as a musician? Do you spend a lot? Do you do a lot of shed time? Are you learning new material? Kind of what is your process as a player?
Yeah, well, yeah, I shed a lot. I meant to mention back when I was saying what albums I'm putting out. I also have a record that I recorded, but it's not edited yet. That's all solo mandolin arrangements of hymns, like religious music. That a lot of which
Oh,
are yeah, a
nice.
lot of which I grew up with. A couple I didn't, but mostly I grew up with them, and because I grew up playing in a bluegrass gospel band with my dad. But these are solo mandolin arrangements, just instrumental. Where I'm trying to do something different with each one. I don't know when that'll be out, but sometime next year. Um, and so in the lead up for that, I was like shedding like a madman, but just kind of playing those arrangements, practicing those arrangements a ton. Um, and and in that case, actually, I got back from like a 6 week tour, and then I had like this is earlier this month. I had like written all the arrangements on the tour, and I had like 2 weeks to learn them all because I put like crazy time constraint on it. I don't know why the heck I did that, but that's when I booked the studio dates for. So I had to so I was practicing like 7, 8 hours a day learning these arrangements, and for the first 2 weeks of November or whatever. Um, but yeah, I play quite a lot. It depends. Like on the road, obviously, sometimes you can't practice as much, but you're playing quite a bit. But um, and I have stuff that I kind of work on almost as like a hobby. Like I'm really into Irish and Scottish music and going to Irish jams, and I would love to play more of that stuff. I don't know professionally or what, but I just love that music, and there's so many freaking tunes. It's crazy. So just learning tunes is uh, one of the main barriers to entry, obviously for that genre. It seems like, but so I was working on that this morning, and I was working on rhythm changes this morning, just taking rhythm changes through all 12 keys, which is just sort of classic jazz school fare, But you never
Mm-hmm.
gets easier. It doesn't seem like. Well, maybe it gets easier, but it never gets easy. But um, but so yeah, I'm kind of always practicing, but it kind of varies how much, it depends how busy, but maybe like 1 to 4 hours a day on average, something like that.
Yeah,
But then more if I, have the time and or am in a crunch with learning something. Um,
yeah,
yeah, so but quite a bit, and I'm pretty consistent. Like I'm never not practicing. I guess that'd be a way to put it. and and the nice thing about that, I think, it's sort of like if you're exercising every day, kind of if it's lifting weights or if it's running, you're just very familiar with that routine, and you know what you're going to do when you go do it. Versus sort of if you haven't exercised for a period of months or years, you don't really know where to start, and it's sort of intimidating. There's all these various things you might do. Practicing for me, it's kind of similar where if you're doing it every day, you kind of know what you're working on. Maybe you're keeping a journal or you're just keeping it in your mind, but it's fresh in mind, like where I was at with this thing, versus practicing can kind of be
Yeah.
like, if it's sort of like your book you're reading that you put down and don't mark your place, and then 3 weeks later you pick it up and you're like, okay, where was I in this book? I think it was this, and you spend a bunch of time reading pages you've already read. I mean, I do think that's something I kind of avoid in practicing because since I'm always doing it. So
Yeah, no, that's great. I applaud your process, and I do think that consistent time first of all, but then having a game plan and just kind of addressing the things that maybe some maintenance things about playing or tunes or
sure.
just concepts. I think that's such a great idea to just keep the facility fresh for you never
Yeah.
know when you're going to need to recall something on a gig or a recording or anything. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I think another thing is maybe that, like, if you practice for a few weeks or days or longer, and then you hit some sort of wall, some sort of block or plateau, and then you kind of try a little bit and then give up and then that kind of kills your ambition to practice. And then like you maybe you'll pick it up working on that same thing a few weeks later or months, and then you hit the same wall again. You work your butt off to get to that point, and you hit this wall again, and then you give up again. You kind of don't spend the time that you need just repeatedly banging your head against that wall. That may be what it takes to get through that. That's kind of how it feels for me, where if you're sort of staying warm, like if you're always playing, you're always sort of right at the edge, so you're continuing to kind of push that wall versus sort of like, I'm kind of rephrasing what I just said, but spending time sort of just getting to where you were before, and
Yeah.
I think that's like, that can be kind of inefficient, versus if you kind of are always at peak functioning, you can be always sort of pushing on the edge of what you can do versus repeatedly having to spend time just getting back to the forefront of what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that makes so much sense. Yeah. That's man, it's just it's a constant journey, isn't it? I mean, it's just something
Absolutely.
that, just trying to, I heard someone, the frustration factor of that distance between where you are and where you want to be, and then as your skill level improves, that frustration level it just keeps going up with you. That you're constantly going to be striving for that level that, in a healthy way, you're probably never going to achieve it, but it's, excellence is going to happen as the result.
Yeah, I mean, there are certainly unhealthy mental traps that I fall into, like, when kind of, if there's something I can't do, like I'm good at continuing to be kind of perseverant, tenacious about it in terms of like beating my head against the door over it. But the flip side of that is I can also have a tendency to turn this one thing I can't do into like my whole life and like define myself in relation to this one thing I can't do. So the benefit is that you're striving and you're definitely not backing down. But the unfortunate part is that like sometimes you lose perspective on all the things you can do because there's this one thing you can't do yet. So I struggle with that more than anything. Is like, as soon as I find this thing I can't do, it's like, well, I'm just no good at the mandolin then if I can't do this one thing, And so that's so that can be the flip side of that process. But anyway, yeah.
It is a never-ending journey, that is for certain.
For sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, Jacob, I've had an absolute blast hanging out and chatting with you today, and I can't thank you enough for just spending some time with me, man. I just thank you for the music, and I wish you all the best.
Man, thank you, Brad. Yeah, thanks so much for having me, man. Great questions, and yeah, it was a super pleasant chat for sure.
Yeah, it certainly was. Well, thank you, and
you got it.
Hopefully, I'll see you somewhere down the road, man. Best of luck to you.
Sounds good, man. Absolutely.
That was my conversation with mandolinist Jacob Jolliffe. If you enjoyed this conversation, please follow or subscribe to the Bandwidth Tapes wherever you listen, and consider leaving a rating or review. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.